Welcome on in, soccer and football fans alike. It is another edition of Edging a Win here on Saturday, June 24th. And wow, the European season is over, which means we transition to the Americas, where we have MLS going at full throttle, and the CONCACAF Gold Cup also is starting tonight, which we will dive into a little bit later in today's show. But before we get into all of our best bets, we have to welcome in the face of the program, soccer betting expert extraordinaire. He is a prominent kit man for the NFL Europe and the number one and only fan of Oxford United, Mr. Ian Allen from Ian OUFC right here on YouTube. Ian, how are you, sir?
What's this low blow? What was that little cheap shot you dub in there at the end? Don't go dragging Oxford United into this. I'm supposed to be on an extended rest period now. June is usually a time I don't do anything. You've dragged me in to do this MLS stuff and CONCACAF Gold Cup and whatever it is. So, look, Oxford United, they are kicking up a storm already, Matt, bringing in so many new players. We have got 17th place in our sights for next season. Don't you worry about it. But thank you for inviting me on. We've got some good bets, well, we think anyway, and let's try and win some people some money.
Yeah, time to edge some win. We got a fun show lined up for everybody. Social media is up above, so check us out. Go subscribe. But without further ado, let's see if we can't edge out some wins this weekend. And like I mentioned, it is full throttle in the MLS. We're about halfway or just over halfway through the season. And Ian, I know you're looking at a good one with, I think, the top of the Eastern Conference Cincinnati team here at 7:30 p.m. Eastern tonight. What do you got going in this one?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. First one I'm looking at is the game between DC United and FC Cincinnati, and I'm going for FC Cincinnati on the money line. I'm starting with the side that are top of the Eastern Conference, and I think they're going to get a win over the 9th place DC United. And other than looking at the Cincinnati's form, I think the Orange and Blues were a really good price to win this one. I was surprised at the odds that are really in their favour. Quite a bit of Hunger Games there, but they are really a decent price. And I would say even if you put them on the spread at +1, you're still going to get a good price on them. But I think they're going to win this one outright. They've won 7 out of their last 8 games, and they're coming up against a DC United side that have lost their last 2. And to be honest, they've not been in really good form all season. Wayne Rooney side, they do have Christian Benteke up front, who is always going to be a threat in the air and always quite a powerful forward. But in the back line and in midfield, I do think they lose their shape, they lose their discipline. And I think that's where this Cincinnati side is going to pick them off. I think with their high press, they're going to create a ton of chances for Luciano Acosta. He's having an amazing season. I think he's going to carry that on. And I'm going to go for a nice, good win for FC Cincinnati. And that is my bet number 1.
Yeah, Cincinnati, they've been excellent so far this season. I think I mentioned they're top of the Eastern Conference right now. They actually broke a record of most points in the first 15 matches in the MLS. Side note, the only team to beat them was St. Louis City. We'll get into that team that's in shambles in a moment. But you see two sides here, I think, with different fortunes. Ian, Pat Noonan has done a great job with Cincinnati so far, but Wayne Rooney seems to be struggling with DC United. What's the main difference you see between these two sides?
Yeah, I mean, looking at it, obviously, when Cincinnati have just been in such good form, and you rarely need to change much when you're in good form. And I think that's the main thing. When you look at the two formations that they've played over the course of the season, Cincinnati have been very settled with the kind of system that what's his name, Pat Noonan has picked. He plays kind of a 3-4-1-2, and they've played that in kind of 15 out of the 17 games they've played so far. Whereas Wayne Rooney has tried pretty much every single tactic under the sun. They've tried 6 different tactics so far, 6 different formations, which kind of just shows me that he himself doesn't really know what the best side is and what the best formation is. And I think that they're just struggling. He's just trying to find some consistency with a formation. He just hasn't found it yet. I wouldn't be shocked if you see DC United come out, make quite a few changes in that transfer window that's opening up early in July. I think that DC United might try and bring some new players in, freshen it up a bit, because I think they've been a bit poor, underperforming so far. Whereas Cincinnati, it's just been a case of it's not broke, let's not fix it, and that's why they've been kind of smashing it so far in the East.
Any chance in that transfer window Wayne Rooney activates himself again to become a player in the MLS?
There we go. Good old Wayne. He probably still could do a job. Like he was an excellent footballer. He really was, and technically he's probably still got more skill than probably a lot of the players. He could probably just stand in the middle and pass the ball around pretty effectively. But I would say that he's also probably quite enjoys his cigarettes and alcohol on the weekends rather than playing.
Well, personally, I love Wayne Rooney. I put that guy above Harry Kane any day. So
yeah, I mean, if you're looking at actually like raw talent, I think that you'd agree with that. I would say I wish Wayne Rooney had a little bit more of Harry Kane's professionalism. You hear stories of how he was literally smoked all the way through his career, and you kind of think, oh, did you really need to do that, Wayne? But there we go.
He is the John Daly of the football world.
What a shout! What a shout! I love it.
I like that bet, though. I think Cincinnati continues to roll. They are the team to beat, it looks like, right now in the MLS. I believe they are in first in the Supporters' Shield, which is the league shield of the best record overall Western and Eastern Conference. I'm going to look at a matchup today for my first best bet of the day. Austin and Houston Dynamo. I'm going to go with over 2.5 goals in this one, Ian. It's a matchup that's going to feature a team that is underachieving versus a team that is overachieving. Austin FC, a team that was in the Western Conference Finals last year, finds himself barely treading water in the 8th spot this season. And before the midweek 3-0 dropping of Dallas that they had lost 4 of their last 5 overall matches, including getting bounced from the U.S. Open Cup to a bad Chicago Fire team. Now, Houston, they have been quite the opposite this season, starting the season off rather mediocre, but they have won 4 straight overall matches, including 2 back-to-back matches against LAFC, and doing what Austin could not do in the U.S. Open Cup. They beat Chicago Fire, putting them in the U.S. Open Cup semifinals. Amin Bassi has been phenomenal for this Dynamo squad, putting in 8 goals already on the season. Now, given the recent form with Houston, you might not ask, why not back them here on the money line? And it's quite simple. They are horrendous on the road. Just 1 win on the season and 11 goals given up over their last 5 matches. I think the smart bet today is to take the over 2.5 goals, with Austin hitting this mark in their last 3 home matches. And the nail in the coffin for me is that these two teams have played 9 different times since 2012 when Austin came in. 2021. I don't know, whenever it was. Whenever Austin came into the league, 8 of the 9 of those matches went over 2.5 goals, and all 3 in Austin went over. So I am on the over today. I know both these teams have, underachieving, overachieving at the moment, but I do like there to be goals in this matchup.
Yeah, I like it. I think this one could be one of the games of the weekend, to be honest. They both had really big wins in the midweek. Look out for Corey Baird for Houston, Diego Fagundes for Austin. Both of them very exciting wide players. So I expect this one to be a pretty entertaining game. Now, the fact you've picked it probably means it's going to end up in a 0-0 draw.
Probably.
Looking forward on both of these sides, just looking a bit more long-term, do you see any of these two being like a major challenger for the MLS Cup at the end of the season?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I think you're getting, if you look at the future market on both these teams, it's kind of interesting to me. You are getting a huge price right now on Houston. They're in the 4th spot in the Western Conference. They're in good form, but the bookmakers are telling you that they're 35-1 odds. That's kind of remarkable. But as I mentioned, I think they're overachieving at this point. I think they will, regress a little bit as the season goes on. Austin at the moment is 50-1, and they're in the 8th spot, just about 5 or 6, really kind of out of second place. So I think if you are looking at either of these teams and the longevity of the second half of the season on maybe who you want to take a flyer on, I would actually go with Austin. I know, you were getting 35-1 with Houston kind of in that 4 seed right now, but I think that Austin team has the potential, to get back to what they did last year. I mean, there are 3 teams in front of Austin that have just one win in their last 5 matches. So the top of the West is in shambles at the moment. Seattle doesn't look good. LAFC doesn't look good. We'll talk about St. Louis SC coming up in a moment. They don't look great. And if Austin can get things going, they might put themselves in an opportunity to make it back to at least the Western Conference Finals, if not the Finals itself. So at 50-1, I think taking a flyer there is probably something we should do.
Yeah, when do the playoffs start in the MLS? When does the end of the regular season?
It's late October, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Late October, yeah. Little chat going on, and a question here. What's up, Daryl or Darrell? Opinions on parlaying the Revolution Sounders in Cincinnati. So we've already taken Cincinnati on the money line as Ian's first bet. Revolution are playing Toronto at home. I like that. Toronto's kind of been a team that's been up and down. New England's been in good form. In fact, the last 5 they have not lost in their last 5 matches. Toronto, they just lost 3-0 against Cincinnati on the road. I could see them doing that. And then Seattle is taking on Orlando City, and that's been an interesting team for me. They just can't get things going. I don't know. Ian, thoughts on those 3?
Are Seattle at home or away?
Seattle is at home. Yeah, they're at home today.
I think it's they look like 3 pretty good sides. I would say pretty. Yeah, it's a pretty good bet to me.
Yeah.
3 pretty strong sides against 3 of the weaker kind of sides, or 3 inconsistent sides. So yeah, it looks pretty good. Let us know what price you're getting on that one if you price that all up, Daryl.
I'm thinking that's probably around like 3 or 4 plus 400, something like that, with all 3 of those. Yeah, but Darrell, let us know. But I think that's a good parlay, especially Toronto and Orlando. The only team that would worry me there is Orlando against Seattle. Seattle's been a little up and down. Just don't know what you're going to get out of that team right now. But that's a good one. I like it. Ian, I know you're actually
Sorry, I was just going to say, it's that dodgy Western Conference, isn't it? You just don't know what they're going to do, which side's going to turn up, if you like. But just going back to the bet you made on Austin and Houston, talking about who could come through in the end. You do see that a lot in England, in like the EFL. You see these sides making huge surges up the league in the back half of the season. So it's not uncommon to see a side kind of 15th, 16th, and then have an amazing second half and like get themselves into playoff contention.
Yeah, you also see teams that have a decent first half that then lose almost 17 matches in a row.
That never happened. That never happened. I've already wiped that from my mind.
All right, hey, let's stay with the Western Conference. Good segue here. And Ian, I think you have another best bet that you're looking at in the MLS. Real Salt Lake and Minnesota at 9:30 Eastern tonight. What do you see in this one?
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, so I'm looking at Real Salt Lake on the money line in this one. I think that they are a side that's just hit a little bit of form. They're 2 sides, to be honest, that haven't had great MLS campaigns so far. But I do, as I said, I do think Real Salt Lake are the side that have the edge in this one. The only thing that worries me slightly is their home form has been pretty poor, but that does also make them a pretty good price. But let's be fair, Minnesota's away form is also not very good, and Minnesota are one of the weaker sides in this conference, sitting right the way down in 12th place. Real Salt Lake up at 7, and Minnesota are also coming off a 4-0 defeat on the road to Montreal. Well, arguably, Real Salt Lake produced their best performance of the season, although it was against our beloved St. Louis. I thought in the second half of that game they were actually really good. But they do need to transfer that away form into how they do at home, and I do see this as kind of being a perfect opportunity to do that. We'll discuss tactics and stuff in a minute, but I think that Real Salt Lake to win on the money line is my bet number 3.
Yeah, I actually like Real Salt Lake, especially after they took care of business against St. Louis SC. They've really come on strong again in that second half, and they looked like a team that was on a mission to maybe get on a run here. Can you give me a little breakdown of how you think they will beat Minnesota and who their key players are in this match?
Yeah, so for Real Salt Lake, they're not. I mean, neither one of these sides are a side that really back on possession. They're very direct and like to get the ball forward and out wide as quickly as they can, and that's really Real Salt Lake's kind of strength. Really, they play a 4-4-2 formation, and which is almost like your rudimentary I wouldn't say basic. It's a good formation, but a lot of people get snobby about it because we're in an age of fancy formations. But 4-4-2 is probably the most standard formation you used to see. I don't know if there's like an American sports equivalent to that of like just your kind of like your rudimentary basic formation that you play, which is kind of ingrained in every footballer. But it does give you a kind of like every base is covered kind of avenue. And at Real Salt Lake, they like to hit the ball out to the wings. You've got two decent wide players in there in Luna and Jacobson, and they very, very skillful players as well. They'll try and get in behind, try and create a lot of crosses. They are a side that does create a lot of chances. You saw Krylech, he scored 2 really good goals against St. Louis, and Musovski as well up there as well. They do sometimes struggle to put their chances away, but they do create chances. And you've got 2 midfielders in there, Loth Sand, who usually likes to hold, and Ruiz, who likes to come forward and try and score goals from distance. So they're a solid side, if not spectacular. But I think that they will put this Minnesota backline under a lot of pressure. I think that they'll constantly ask questions of them, and I think that they'll create enough scoring opportunities to go and win this side, because really Minnesota struggle a lot against sides that like to play a lot of through balls. Like they don't play the offside game very well, and that's where I see Real Salt Lake getting a lot of joy getting in behind their backline.
Yeah, this Real Salt Lake team, quite honestly, this season impresses me because they're scoring. Ian, in the past, this team is actually... The name Real is actually kind of ironic because they play like a Spanish side for most years where they're not scoring goals. It's very methodical as they play. But they're actually right behind St. Louis in most goals per game at 2.7 this year. So it is interesting. And hey, maybe they finally figured out that if they score goals, they might do a little bit better in the league.
Maybe. Yeah. It does tend to help.
Yeah, it does. So... I like Real Salt Lake here on the money line. I think that is a team, again, that's, maybe making a second half surge here. There are some other games, though, that are on the slate for this match day 21 here, and I want to dive into a few, and obviously the first one that I want to dive into is going to be the St. Louis City game. San Jose against St. Louis City. That is second place St. Louis City at the moment. But St. Louis City's in trouble, Ian. Klaus out for another 4 more weeks, and they lost Lovin for 4 to 6 weeks with a injury that he picked up in practice. I think it was his calf or his quad. Not ideal for this team moving forward. They're barely hanging on to the second spot by a thread in the Western Conference. In fact, this is actually crazy. At the end of tonight, it's possible that St. Louis City could go from second all the way down, tied for 7th by the end of the day. Are you worried about this St. Louis team, Ian?
Yeah, they're going for a poor patch at the moment. They're losing games, and they're not looking good in games as well, and that's a real worry. I think you said it's like 1 point from the last 4, and again, they've had little peaks and troughs throughout the season. They've had periods where they've been good and periods where they've been poor, but this one just seems to be where they've been really sloppy. Like every single game, they seem to go down early, which really shooting yourself in the foot really right at the start. And a couple of times they managed to claw their way back level, and then they start the second half poorly as well. And I think the 3-1 game, the defeat they had the other week, maybe against Nashville, that stupid red card in there as well, which doesn't help them. So everything's going a little bit poorly at the moment. I think Bradley Cannell, he just needs to try and do something different a little bit, really. Make them a little bit more hard to beat. This is going to be a tough game away at San Jose. And I think they just need to make sure that they are in the game for longer periods of it. Try not to get goal down early doors. Try and make yourself hard to beat. Even if you come away with a draw in this one, that's a pretty decent result. And again, maybe this is just points to the fact you talked about their goal record. Just maybe trying to be a little bit too expansive at times, and then they're just being picked off at the other end. It is still a new side, bit of an inexperienced side. They are missing key players that you just mentioned. I like the way McLovin. I like the way you sort of said that. But it's
Luvin.
Yeah. But yeah, again, maybe the trade windows come around at a good time for them as well. That might be an opportunity to bring in some more experienced players, try and strengthen the core of this team up a little bit. But I would say it's a bad period at the moment, but they've shown that they can turn this form around. And I wouldn't say that I'd still say they've got a good chance of getting into the playoffs. Their home form's still been pretty good. and so I wouldn't say it's panic stations just yet.
Yeah, the thing that worries me is I think what we're seeing is the lack of depth with this expansion team.
Yeah,
And I think
agreed.
with expansion teams, we came out hot. We won 5 of our first 5 games. We looked on top of the world. Even after that, as Klaus and the entire squad was still intact, no injuries, we looked very good. However, as these injuries have started to pile up, I think you're seeing some young guys come in, not have the experience, and just not be able to hold this team together, whether that be from leadership standpoint or skill. So I am worried. I think because the standings are very close. We have 29 points, and 21 points would be out of the playoffs. So if we go on what I call an Oxford United run, we could immediately be out of the playoffs in about 3 to 5 weeks.
That's three. That's three now. Yeah, the dictionary definition, Oxford United run. Yeah, you can.
So I am worried.
The word failure.
I am worried, but we'll just have to. We'll wait and see what happens tonight, and we'll talk about it next week. There are a couple other games that I think I just wanted to get your opinion on and share mine. Columbus Crew against Nashville. I think this is going to be a great game. Nashville did lose to Montreal, which was skeptical, although it was in Montreal, and I think it was during the international window, so Nashville might have been without some players there. But before that game, they had won 3 of their last 4. They were on a good run. They're second place, and now they're going to go up against a decent Columbus Crew team that's won 3 of their last 4. So what do you think on that game? Fun one to watch, I think.
Yeah, it should be a good one. I don't know. I have a feeling that Columbus will probably win that game. Looking in pretty good form themselves. Two really good sides. Again, if Nashville do lose that, and then you have Cincinnati winning, that will put Cincinnati something like 10 points clear at the top of the East.
I can't imagine anybody catching them.
It doesn't look like it at the moment. But yeah, it should be a good one.
It should be a good one. The other thing that I'm looking at that I think is kind of intriguing is LAFC has now taken over first place as St. Louis has fallen in the Western Conference. They are going to take on Vancouver Whitecaps. Vancouver, interestingly enough, they have come on strong here in the last few weeks. They're in decent form. I think they have 8 points in their last 5 games. They're sitting in that 9 play-in game spot at the moment. LAFC, as we know, did falter. They lost 2 in a row to Houston, as I mentioned before, but now they've kind of got back on track, winning 2-1 over Kansas City, which, by the way, I think that game was an unreal comeback. They had 2 goals in like 2 minutes in the 75th and 77th, something like that, to kind of steal that game. And I think that might have been a turning point on the season for this team, because if they lose to Kansas City there, which was an awful side and a team that was in bad form at that time, that could have been 3 straight losses, but that ends up being a win, and then they get another win last midweek over the Seattle Sounders at home, which was a good side there. So I think this is interesting to see if LAFC continues to be successful after those 2 wins, or if Vancouver, who's coming on strong in their last 5 games, can nick out maybe at least a point.
Yeah, for me, I just think that LA will be way too strong at home. I just feel that they'll come and get a nice, comfortable win in that one. So I would say if you are doing a parlay this weekend, that would be probably one of the bankers I would put in my parlay is LAFC to win that game.
Yeah, they're pretty strong, and again, they have a game in hand over everybody right now in that Western Conference, I think. So I expect them to take first place. I know it was fun while it lasted with St. Louis City up there, but I think we're coming back down to earth and realizing what's going on in the Western Conference. That's all the MLS stuff I have, but we have a major tournament starting. It is not the World Cup yet. That is actually going to start July 20th. It is bigger than the World Cup. It is the Gold Cup. And tonight it kicks off with USA and Jamaica. And I do have a bet here. I am going to take USA -1 over Jamaica. You can actually get this at +120. Listen, United States are coming off a CONCACAF Nations League title where they beat Canada 2-0 in the final. They're going to face off on their quest for a record-tying 8th Confederations title against Jamaica, who they have owned in this tournament. These two teams know each other well, but they are going to have some powerhouses in their group, so who knows if the USA gets out. They have St. Kitts and Nevis and Trinidad and Tobago to make up the rest of Group A. But the Americans, as I mentioned, good record, 6-1 over Jamaica in the Gold Cup. Overall, the Reggae Boys, as we know them, they have not won a match in 2023. It's a little concerning for them as they come into this tournament. Listen, I'm not saying the Jamaicans are just going to roll over and look to advance out of the group by taking out St. Kitts and Trinidad and Tobago, but I think that USA is going to be too much for them tonight. This USA squad, they've been playing meaningful matches all month long, and I think that actually means something as they come into another meaningful tournament. I think they're going to come out ready to play here, take command of this one, as this is probably the only team that could beat them in Group A. I like this to be 1-0 headed into halftime for the U.S., and I like them to get up as they usually do, 2 or 3-0 in the second half and hold that lead. So I'm taking USA -1 on the spread at +120 for some good value in this match for the Gold Cup. I know you have some thoughts also on Jamaica, though, as well, Ian.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll get into it a little bit when we talk about the actual predictions for the tournament. But I actually do fancy that. I actually think this Jamaican squad looks actually pretty decent. America should still come and win this game, no doubt about it. But I do think this Jamaica squad's not too bad. I actually think they could do quite well in this tournament. But just a couple of things just on this. Firstly, you mentioned Confederations title. Is that anything to do with the Civil War?
I think so. And I don't want to get my channel deleted, so I'm going to just leave it at that. By the way, I see Al in the chat.
Flag down, boy.
Al, good morning to you. Al says good morning. Love the program and the new time slot. Appreciate it. Good to see you, buddy.
Good morning.
Yeah, so, I mean, they are going for their 8th Confederations title. I mean, I think Jamaica is a good side compared to, the smaller Caribbean islands that they face, but I just can't see them doing anything.
Sure. I'll tell you why you're wrong in a bit, but first of all, I want to say, USA, are they really going to go back to Greg Berhalter as their coach? Is this really happening? Are we living in a Twilight Zone situation here?
Yeah, it's an interesting situation. There was an investigation into him after the World Cup about kicking his wife back in, I think, 1991, which, I'm glad that was put out there, so I made sure I didn't do that to my wife. I mean,
we've all done it.
But I'll tell you right now, it was an interesting situation. I mean, I believe Gio Reyna is his dad actually was behind some of this and the investigation, and it was just a whole dilemma. Now I'll tell you this: I'm a big proponent of people making mistakes and being able to say I'm sorry for it. But I'm also a huge advocate of people to stop going back to tweets 30 years ago. I mean, if you go back to how I talked to my mother when I was 7 years old, I'll tell you right now, you probably wouldn't think I would have a YouTube channel because I probably wasn't the nicest kid. So I think as a nation, as a world, we need to stop going back to tweets 30 years ago. And to be honest, at the moment in 1991 or 92, he apologized for it. I actually like bringing him back. I think he was a great coach. Now, when they brought him back, they did it very interestingly. They did it during the Mexico game on live TV, and no one knew it was happening. And if you go back and look at some of those, how Golzola had to sit there and answer questions immediately about it. Alexi Lawless, I think, had a good answer to it. But yeah, I'm excited. I think we do well here with him. I mean, what are your thoughts on him? I thought he was a good coach.
He's a good coach. I mean, I think there wasn't too much wrong. I mean, there were some things wrong with how America did in the World Cup. I thought generally they did all right. I mean, it's just that. I just wonder, like, kind of how it's going to deal with like their style of play. I mean, I hope that they don't. I hope that they go into looking to play games like they did against England, where they're a bit more in your face. I think that sort of suits your American style a bit more, pressing high, getting in your face, high level of like athleticism and stamina and power and pace and stuff like that, rather than trying to play a over the top technical European game.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of, because the Europeans seem to, when Europeans have got control of a game, that's when they're at the best. They really struggle when like they play sides that take them out of their comfort zone. And America did that really well against England, but then they didn't do that well against the Dutch, and they didn't do that so well at times against Wales and things like that as well. So I just worry that the direction. I hope that's going to take USA into a good direction rather than maybe moving them backwards.
Yeah, no, I agree. I do hope it takes them in a forward direction. I will say this, on the live interview, I think with the vice president of the U.S. men's national team, whatever it is, I think the question was brought to him at the end of the Gold Cup, will there be a reassessment on him? Which I think is pretty early after, but if I'm the United States and I'm looking at the teams of this Gold Cup, which we'll get to in just a second, I think it's either win or fail, in my opinion. I mean, I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I agree. I mean, let's just start off by talking about the USA then, and like the sort of team. But I think it's harsh to kind of judge the United States too much on this tournament. Yes, okay, they probably should at least get to the final, but they are resting a lot of their key players. Out of the main guys that you see out of the regular first team or for regular squad, you've still got Matt Turner in goal, you've got DeAndre Yedlin, you've got Jordan Morris, but there's a lot of the senior players that aren't there. So it is kind of, I wouldn't say a B team, but like a younger squad. So you're going to kind of see how the next generation of talent are going to do. So I think that's kind of, it's a little bit harsh to kind of judge the US too much on this tournament. I think there's some really good, exciting young players that we could see, like Jesus Ferreira of FC Dallas. I think he's got 10 goals already this season, so going to see how well he does. Christian Roldan, centre midfielder from Seattle. He could looking to see how he does in this tournament as well. So I think it's about the US trying to find the next generation of talent as much as it is going out trying to dominate this tournament, really, more than anything.
I agree, but hey, let's get into the meat of it real quick, and let's look at the groups and give a quick prediction before we sign off here. Group A, Jamaica, St. Kitts and Nevis, Trinidad Tobago, U.S. I think we both agree U.S., Jamaica are coming out of this one. I have U.S. 1, Jamaica as the runner-up.
Yeah, I agree. And just my thoughts on Jamaica really quickly is I feel they could get to a semi-final in this tournament. They could be dark horses in this one. Brought in a lot of Premier League players. There's a lot of English players with like Jamaican backgrounds and stuff. So they brought in a lot of guys like Mikel Antonio of West Ham, Damari Gray of Everton, Decordova Reid of Fulham, Ethan Pinnock of Brentford. So they're going to be a strong side, a stronger side than maybe people are looking at. And I think that they could cause a few sides some problems in this one, especially next round if they come up against a weakened Canada side. I think they could knock them out.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. Quickly to Group B, Haiti, Honduras, Mexico, Qatar. I'm going to take Mexico to win this group, but I don't know if this is going to be a surprise to people, but I'm going to take Qatar to be runners-up.
I think we're agreeing in this one. I mean, Mexico, disarray, absolutely, almost like they're treating that as like a humiliation, the way they went out of the Nations League. So it is going to be a story of redemption for them, and they picked actually probably the strongest squad out of all the nations in this one. Qatar, I mean, we'll agree to disagree on how good they were in the World Cup, but I think this is going to be more their level. Almos Ali has a goal-scoring record of 42 goals in 88 games. So expect him to do well in this tournament, I think.
Group C, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Martinique, and Panama. Costa Rica, I have coming out as top. They're a team that we don't see quite often enough, but I think they're a good squad, and they're not really in one of the harder groups there in Group C. I am going to take Panama as the runner-up. I think Martinique might actually play pretty well, or El Salvador. Both those teams might get maybe a draw or two, but I think it'll come down to goal differential, and I think Panama will be the runner-up in this group.
I mean, I haven't really got too much to say. I agree with you on that one. I'm kind of just looking at my kind of European view of it, if you like, and just Costa Rica and Panama seem to be the strongest names, so they'll probably come through.
And then lastly, Group D, Canada, Cuba, Guadalupe, and Guatemala. I think this is pretty easy here. Canada will come out as number one, and I'm going to go with Cuba. I would throw Guadalupe out there. The only team I don't know quite too much about is Guatemala. So if there's a team that would surprise me other than Cuba, it's probably Guatemala.
It's a toss of a coin, really, and yeah, between those two. I mean, you'd be amazed if Canada didn't win that group, but they are going down the same road as the US in terms of resting some of their key players. There's no Alphonso Davis, no Jonathan David, no Kyle Larin, no Tajon Buchanan. So resting a lot of their first teamers and going with a more younger squad. So it might be something that backfires, but I will certainly say they'll be good enough to get out of the group.
So, if you go on to the quarterfinals, I have USA facing number 2 out of Group D, which would be Qatar. I think USA will just be too much, but good Lord.
Group D, that's Group B. Group D would be Cuba or Guatemala, isn't it, or something?
Is it Group D? Group A and Group... I thought it was Group A and Group D. Oh, you're right. That's Group B. Sorry, they have it, yeah.
Group A and Group D, yeah.
Sorry, they have it wrong here. I don't know why they're... but anyways, I would have them against number 2 of Group D, which would be Cuba. I have USA moving on there. I have Canada beating Jamaica, but I think that actually could be the match of the tournament if that's in a quarterfinal stage.
Yeah, I think Jamaica will beat Canada in that one.
Then I have Mexico, Group B winner over Panama. I think that would be another great game. And then I have Costa Rica over Qatar. But that one wouldn't be surprise me if it goes to like penalty kicks or something like that.
Yeah, well, we just saw Mexico play Panama in the Nations League. I know it was like the losers final, if you like, but they didn't look great. No. And Panama certainly matched them. So that is not a cut and dry win for Mexico in that one. What was the other game? Sorry, you said
it would be Costa Rica and Qatar.
50-50 game for me, that one.
Okay. Interesting. So then in the semis, I would have USA going up against, I don't know, somebody. But let's just get to our final predictions. Who would USA play? USA and
it'd be USA.
It'd be Group A versus Group B, right?
So it'd be Mexico, wouldn't it? Probably.
Yeah, it would be. It'd be Mexico. I don't know, but I have Mexico. Let's talk about that real quick. I have Mexico winning this tournament.
Do you know what? I didn't want to. I think that probably is the most likely outcome. Looking at it, it's probably going to be a win for Mexico. But just to be something different, I would say just have a little bit of interest in it. Don't put a lot of money on it, but Jamaica is something like 20-1, something like that. So to maybe just put a few dollars on that one, just to keep it interesting. That would be maybe my kind of pick for an outsider.
Yeah, the reason that I think Mexico is going to win this is I honestly think they were embarrassed in the Nations League semifinal. I think they come in. I think they want to get a win against the U.S. I think they want to win this and show everybody in the world that they are not a team to lose 3-0 to the USA. I think it was on their home soil too. So I think they go for redemption here. I think they win the Gold Cup, and I think that's going to make Burkhalter have an interesting conversation to the press afterwards.
I just hope they don't. I hope they don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, if you like. If they say, "Hey, I don't go too crazy with it," because it's explainable if the USA don't win this tournament, and they still might go and win it. You never know. But wouldn't it be weird if Qatar won?
Listen, this is a team, and I think we both disagree on how they played in the World Cup. I thought they played pretty well.
Okay, sure.
But
sure did.
But that's, to be honest, I think Qatar could beat Oxford United. I think they could beat.
Shut up! Stop! Oh man! Look, last season they're gonna be different this year. Last season you could have picked a fucking Girl Scout team to beat Oxford United.
Speaking of Oxford United, I'm excited again. For those of you that don't know, I am starting an Edging a Win channel. We're going to move all of our soccer over to our own channel for Edging a Win. I'll probably, tell everybody on Grandstand Bettors when that happens, so you can all help me out and subscribe to that channel. It's actually live right now, so if you want to go subscribe to Edging a Win, you can do it. But there's no programming yet, there'll be plenty of time on that channel to take down Oxford United over the next 2023-2024 EFL season. Ian, before we sign off...
Matt's taking all his attention onto that, and it means I'm going to be live streaming the Browns games. Every game with me.
I'm looking forward to that, man. We're just about 2 months away from the Browns kicking off. I'm about to go to the Guardians game. None of that has anything to do with soccer. Any last thoughts? MLS today, Gold Cup tonight.
I think we covered it. I mean, it's nice. I'm looking forward to tomorrow. There's 3 games in the Gold Cup, so I'm looking forward to that one. I'm probably not going to be able to see that game tonight with USA Jamaica. But I'm looking forward to it. Full weekend of MLS, so to be almost like nice nighttime viewing for me.
Awesome. Well, hey guys, appreciate all the love today. Had a nice viewership, so thank you guys for hanging out with us. I think we'll probably stick with this schedule of 11:15 moving forward for the next maybe week or so until we switch over to Edgy. Well, we'll probably stick with it on our new channel as well. But so look forward to seeing you all next week at 11:15 a.m. Eastern Time, which I think is 3:30 in the morning on Ian's side. But we will see you soon. Have a good one.